Welcome to the Impact My Life podcast, where we try to add a little bit of self-defense for your normal life. One of the things that I've noticed working with people for the past 30 years or so is that people over the past few years have gotten more anxious. They've gotten more disconnected despite, being more connected than we ever were. So when I was thinking about this episode, my friend Jaime, my old friend from high school, Jaime, was like the perfect guest for this because her area of focus in her professional life is positive psychology. So welcome, Jaime, to the podcast. And thank you for coming in.
I'm excited.
Yeah. I'll be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
When you've talked to me about positive psychology over the years, I didn't always get it. So I did a deep dive the past week on what positive psychology is. And it really is so incredible. Like it's great stuff. But maybe for our guests, can you define positive psychology in a way that all of us will understand? When I did it in chat, I said, I started as a 5-year-old and now I could handle that. So I moved up to a teenager. But, maybe do it for our listeners.
Yeah, I think I also like to start by what it's not, because I think there's a lot of misunderstanding just by the name. And I'd say most people in positive psychology probably don't like the name positive psychology.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of gives this idea that it's about positive thinking, although there is elements of positive emotion having benefits. It is a field of psychology. So to start with, it's cognitive psychology, behavioral psychology, clinical psychology. Positive psychology is a field of psychology. And it's really, it is in some ways hard to put one short, succinct definition on. But I would say I usually use, it's the scientific study of well-being, of human flourishing, where traditional psychology's focus was on treating mental illness, working through trauma. And although we needed to become well-versed in diagnosing, categorizing, and treating what can go wrong, we were only getting people kind of to a neutral point. So we were getting people maybe out of illness. But if you're able to maybe treat something like depression, it doesn't mean you're happy. You're just not depressed.
Yeah.
So it's really the scientific study of human flourishing, of the good life, of showing up to the world the way you want to. I could go on.
Yeah. How did you find it? How did you get interested in positive psychology?
Yeah, good question. So I think I always was interested in this kind of stuff from a very young age, although I didn't know what I was interested in. I just knew that I was super fascinated with the human condition. I
know you do a lot of personal development. You read a lot of books.
Yeah. Even at like a very young age, I think I had a copy of Think and Grow Rich at 18.
Oh, wow.
Some of those kind of books. I was always fascinated with the way our minds work, what's possible, kind of a seeker. And I also I always helped other people. And so people would come to me with their secrets. And so I thought that I was supposed to be a therapist. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of took that trajectory. I studied human development and developmental psychology. I thought I was going to go on to become a therapist. And I got in an accidental career. Have you ever had one?
Yes.
Yeah, I think a lot of us do. And kind of ended up working with this company that I grew with. I made good money, but I was never really fulfilling what I thought was my own potential, my mission, my purpose. And I had found this TED Talk, to be honest, was where I really first heard about positive psychology. And although I had read personal development, mindset, psychology books, I literally, while I worked at that company I would sit at Barnes & Noble on the floor with piles of books.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a TED Talk by this man named Sean Aker. And for anyone listening, it's a great TED Talk. His book is great. All of his books, he's got a few of them. But it's really where I first heard about this field. And it was this almost like a heavens opening kind of moment.
Epiphany.
Yeah, it was one of those moments I said, that's what I was supposed to do. That's why I didn't become a clinical psychologist. That's why this is what I study, but I didn't know there was a name to it. And I was literally this excited. And every time I talk about it, people always say, you're so passionate about this, because it was what I lived. It is what I had studied, independently. It put all these pieces together. And yeah.
These days, it must be even easier to be passionate about it, because it sounds like exactly what the world needs right now.
It is. But also because it's a newer field of psychology, because there's a lot of misunderstanding about it, because even you had to ask ChatGPT what it was. It is an educational process to show people what it is and that they might need it and why they need it. And I think everybody needs it, which is also why I'm so excited and passionate about it, because it's a really hopeful science. And the fact that people are studying it and that there is a science of human flourishing, of how we feel well, of how we are mentally, it's the science of mental health, although people kind of look at mental health again as treating illness. Same thing with, our physical health. We often use a kind of illness model where we're often treating, the disease and not looking at how do we promote living a healthy, well life in our body. This is kind of how we do that of our mind.
It's almost like doesn't include enough to call it a science. It's kind of an art and a science, I feel like.
Yeah, it's got a little, it's kind of all encompassing. There's a bit of philosophy in it. There's a bit of spirituality in it. There's science in it. It's kind of this, it's also just very intuitive. So whenever I teach people about it, they're like, oh yeah, that's the name of that. Or that's why that works. Or that's why my brain, there's a lot of neuroscience in it. There's a lot of behavioral science. It's kind of blending all of these things together into this field. And there is kind of an umbrella and a framework, but it brings in a lot of different disciplines.
So when you had that epiphany and you're like, this is what I was put here to do.
Yeah.
What were the next steps? Like what kind of schooling, certifications, programs do you have to do to become, a coach in this?
Yeah. So first of all, I knew no one in the field. I didn't know anyone that did this. I didn't know how to do this. So it was
You're the only one I know.
I pretty much I know others because I studied with them, but yeah, around here, I am probably one of the only people that really has made a profession out of this in this area. So I sought out where, traditional educations, I looked for a master's. And so there is one master's. It's at the University of Pennsylvania, about a $70,000 degree, 1-year degree, takes about 40 people. So
Selective too.
As I'm moving into this new direction, I thought maybe I'm going to try some other things before I go for that. Although there is still even a part of me that would love to go do that just because it's kind of the epicenter. It's, UPenn's where this started. And there are lots of other places, not lots of other places, but there's a growing number of places to get certification. So I sought out and found a program at a place called the Flourishing Center. It's based out of Manhattan. But at the time I was studying in Philadelphia. So I traveled there 7 weekends, kind of while I was traveling at this other job. And it's almost like a pilgrimage, go there every month and immerse myself in this with this group of other people that were looking to make positive change in all these different ways. So I started with that. I probably have about 7 or 8 different certifications at this point in different coaching, blending positive psychology, consulting and positive psychology, positive education, which is blending education and positive psychology. So I have a host of them now. But when I was on the path, I always say that I didn't really know. I just kept going towards what felt right. And looking back, I can see how I got to this point. But had you told me 10 years ago how we were going to get to doing what I'm doing, I'd have no idea.
Yeah.
It's one of those take the step, the path appears kind of, it really was.
Yeah.
And I'm still stepping and making choices all the time, but in learning more. But yeah, that's where I eventually ended up, is going the certification route and getting a bunch of them.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, let's get into the nuts and bolts because that's why you're here, is to help our listeners. So starting with the big one, what are the biggest myths people believe about happiness? Because I think people like to compare themselves to other people. And I think a lot of times people think happiness means being happy all the time. What are some myths that you see about happiness that would help people maybe feel better about themselves and their own lives?
Yeah. There's a lot of them. I would start with maybe that happiness is somehow a destination, that I'll be happy if this happens. I'll be happy when this happens. And although those things might give us momentary blips of contentment or joy or excitement or peace, we kind of tend to cycle on, it's called the hedonic treadmill. And happiness, we kind of cycle on this line of best fit for our happiness, and it blips up if something good happens. So we get that raise, we get that car, we get that girlfriend or mate, but then we kind of cycle back down. We're adaptive, and it's good because bad things happen and we go down, but then we come back up.
Yeah.
And so we need it because we're just adaptive creatures. But this idea that I'll finally get to be happy when this thing happens. And a lot of times it is these kind of more, successes that were sold, whether it's the car, the raise, the partner, the house, but we get used to those things. And so we do tend to stay on this line, and there's other things that will actually move that line up rather than these blips that we think are going to actually create happiness. So I'd say this idea that, and it's not only wrong, it's backwards. So we think that if we just, a lot of times we're sold this idea, if we work hard and we meet the goal and success, then we get to be happy. And not only is it only going to last temporarily, it's backwards. The happier we are now, the more likely we are to meet the success.
Mm-hmm.
So our brains work differently in a positive state rather than negative, neutral, or stress state. So if we are in a better state now, if our well-being is taken care of now, we're way more likely to meet every success, whether it's the workplace, our physical health is better. We know that exercise makes us happier, but if we're happier, we're more likely to exercise.
Yeah.
So it's this it's this kind of almost flipping the narrative that we get to be happy now, first of all, and the things that make us happy are probably not the things that we think. And it's an ongoing process. Happiness we don't just get there and then we're there. We're going to have ups, downs, and all those emotions are also good. And I think people think that we should be happy all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be kind of crazy. I mean, if you think about it, we need all emotions. They're all good.
I do know some people like that, but you don't feel like it's not.
And there's probably something under there that they're not actually, anger helps us set boundaries. Sadness helps us process loss.
Yeah.
Shame helps us make change.
Mm-hmm.
We should have all the emotions. It's just positive emotions or ones that feel good or happiness have also their own benefits, which is pretty cool to see too.
Can you talk a little bit? I know for me, people always ask why, I'm a pretty happy person in general.
Yeah.
And a couple of years ago, I kind of realized it's gratitude. Like I'm just really grateful for my life. I'm grateful for my family. I'm grateful for my students. I'm grateful for the business. I'm grateful for all my friends. And maybe talk a little bit about that, because I don't have the language to put to it, but whenever people ask me, they're like, why, you seem to be always happy. And I'm like, because I'm really grateful, because I realize like what my life could be. Yeah. And it's, maybe do I have as much money as a billionaire? No, I don't need that, but I'm happy in my life. I'm just grateful for what I have.
Yeah.
So maybe can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, there's a couple mechanisms when it comes to gratitude. And I think everyone thinks this is pop psychology term, like, let's just be grateful. And but there's really things that it's
like, if you feel it, it's there. Like every day I come home, I see my family and my dogs. I'm like, just love my life.
Yeah. And I think two things happen with gratitude. One, we're not actually wired for happiness. We're wired to survive. Mm-hmm. And because of that, we have something called a negativity bias. And the negativity bias, when we lived in outdoor dangerous environments, we had to see what was bad. So don't fall off that cliff, don't eat that berry, don't get caught in a storm. So the negatives, or what's wrong, are very attention getting, and the bad of a bad feels stronger than the good of a good. Mm-hmm. So just our default setting is to be more negative, is to see the bad in ourselves, is to see the bad in the world. What gratitude
because of the survival instinct.
They kept us alive.
Where it's hardwired in.
It's hardwired in.
And so evolution's going to take a while to get it out.
Yes. And so, now that we're sitting here in this safe environment, I'm sure this is a pretty safe studio. Yeah. This guy seemed pretty nice.
Oh, yeah.
And so we're sitting here in this safe environment, but the negativity bias is still there. Mm. And I could, sit here thinking about everything that could go wrong, or I shouldn't say this. And that's a very natural state. What gratitude does is it overrides our predisposition to focus on the negative, because we're missing all the good because we're so focused on the negative. So it's
it's almost like that, not to interrupt you, but it's almost like that would be something that would lead to depression too, is in those days, people didn't have time to sit there and worry about, little things in life. They were worried about catching their food and not becoming food themselves. Yes. So we have so much time. Things are so good for us that it's easy to kind of have our minds just keep going in the negative direction.
Yeah, they call that like a short-term like an immediate return environment versus this long-term environment that we're in now, where we can worry about everything and see, whether it's our long-term health, our financial portfolio, what's happening in the Ukraine. We can worry about everything because it's all at our access. Where before, in an immediate return environment, a storm came, you took shelter, it passed, cool, So, but back to the gratitude, it actually overrides your negativity bias. So it's intentionally, I always say, being intentional about your attention. It is intentionally putting our attention on what's good. And then kind of the second part of what happens is then what's good grows. So what we appreciate appreciates. The more good we see, the more good we see. It's like when you get a new car and all of a sudden that car is everywhere. Now that car, there's not more of those cars. Yeah. It's just that your attention is on those cars. Same thing with gratitude. The more we start to see the good, the more good we see, and it starts to grow. And so it has its own it starts to rewire paths in our brain for overriding that negative, which I think people should have self-compassion about. A lot of people get really, I wish I could just be, more glass half full, or I'm always worried. But that really is like in default, unless we're practice at some of this stuff, it really is the way our brains work.
Mm-hmm. Now, getting into some tactical stuff for people, what's one practice, one simple thing that you've implemented in your life that's really helped you in terms of just overall happiness and feeling good?
Yeah. And it doesn't take a lot.
Yeah.
That's
why I said one simple thing that people can start with.
And it's all, the other thing I love about this field and the science, it's all free.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't stuff that you have to go buy a program for. These are little shifts in the way and again, that being intentional about your attention.
Mm-hmm.
And so I remember when I was first studying this and I was still in the accidental career I mentioned, and I would wake up in the morning and my mind would start to go to, I wish I could just do this other stuff I want to do. I don't want to go to this job. And instead of saying, what do I have to do today? I would just start to shift small words. Like, what do I get to do today? So
you usually got to go for a run.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So what do I get to do? What instead of what do I want to do? Like little shifts in small words are everything. So language, there's a saying that words create worlds. And if we can just be really, start to recognize our own thoughts and catch them. And so when I'm saying, I have to do this, or, I get to do this, are very different experiences. It's not trying to deny that there are things that you maybe don't want to do, but it again shifts that focus onto the things you're grateful that you do have the opportunity for. And just that little tiny shift. And I really think that first thing in the morning is so important because I know so many people, myself included, I used to do this. You wake up and you're like, first you start with how many hours of sleep did I have? You start you do the counting of the hours of sleep, and then you're like, did I just hear the plow? And before you even put your foot on the floor, you're like
already
3 steps in the negative. So if you can kind of wake up and just try to focus on something you're excited about, something you feel grateful for, from that waking point, it really helps set the day differently.
I think another thing too is we talk to our students a lot about really guarding your circle. You can't do much about your family, but you can minimize if you have family members that kind of bring you down. You can minimize the amount of time you spend with them, but you can choose your friends and the people you surround yourself with. And that's a big one we've talked to kids about, not just for negative influences in terms of like drugs and doing bad things, but just in terms of just your mindset and where you're going in your life.
Yeah, emotions are contagious.
Yeah.
We link up, we sync up. So if I came in here and I was like, "Hi, Jason," and just then we start to mimic and sync up with. We even have neurons firing as you're saying something. I'm firing neurons in anticipation of what you're going to say. So we sync up. So your friends and their peer groups, they're syncing up with those people. I mean, we hear it in like the social media stuff with the brain, I don't know what they call that stuff, but a lot of the middle school kids are listening to the influencers. They start to talk like them. All of this is very contagious.
Bruh. I'm so sick of hearing bruh.
Bruh.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember, I'm paraphrasing, but I remember a quote where, you want to know where you're going to be in 5 years, or I can predict where you'll be in 5 years. Show me the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Yeah. And there's studies showing that your like third degree connection is more influential to your happiness than $10,000 more a year.
Yeah.
Just the third degree connection.
Yeah.
So because we're so synced up and really pick up characteristics and energy and emotion of other people.
Yeah. Maybe a couple of tips for kids, because we were just talking about kids, what can parents do if they want to help influence because schools do the best they can, but they don't do a lot of personal development, coaching, that type of stuff. I mean, the counselors try to, but at the same time, they're trying to get through curriculum and tests and state testing, and there's just not a lot of time. So what are some things parents can do at home to kind of arm their kids self-defense wise to, be positive in a increasingly kind of negative world?
Yeah. I think one of the things that's maybe hugely, and even going back to talking about anxiety rates skyrocketing, I think one of the things that's hugely misrepresented, but just not even under, like the magnitude of its importance is maybe not as understood, is connection with other people. And so the longest study of humans in history is called the Harvard Study of Adult Development. It started in 1938. It's the longest study of humans and still keeps going. And the biggest takeaway on happiness and well-being and even human longevity, or how long we live, is the quality of connections that we have with other people. And I think as kids get more isolated on their own devices, even like socially, as we become more isolated as families into our own homes, and then now they're in their own rooms on their own devices. And this disconnection is so counter. We are wired, we are tribal creatures wired to be in connection and community, to have something we're all working towards, to belong to something that feels, to belong. And I think we underestimate, we kind of push a lot of times for the academics and the activities and the sports, but something like, but within the sport, within going to the dojo is that community piece, that piece of belonging. Kids need other kids.
Yeah.
They need to play. They need to be with they need socialization. And also what's happening is when we're in connection with other people, physical connection, right next to them in the same space, we release oxytocin. If we're hugging, if we're in partner dance, if we're in prayer, massage, petting a dog. Oxytocin is the counter to the flight or fight. So it's the calm and connect hormone. And when we release oxytocin, we feel calm and safe and connected and trust. We actually have more trust. And so kids need to be with other kids. They need to be in community. They need to play in their neighborhoods. They need to find places and spaces that celebrate their unique talents and strengths so that they feel a sense of belonging. I think that social health, because we look at like physical, mental health, spiritual health, but social health,
I like that,
is huge. It's so important.
Yeah, I was watching a video a couple weeks ago where they were talking about they can correlate anxiety levels raising and happiness levels going down with kids right around 2010, 2012 when smartphones came out.
Yeah.
Everything just started tanking, and then it accelerated when the pandemic hit. So
Yeah.
I really like that term, social health.
Social
I'm
health.
gonna start
Yeah.
doing a lot of thinking about that.
Yeah.
So you're also in a unique position because besides being, I don't want to freak you out, but friends for 30 years.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
All right.
It's all right. We're going to celebrate
okay.
that. We're
Yeah.
going to spend a long time. Yeah.
Besides that, though, both your children got black belts through us.
They did.
So what I want you to do is kind of examine like our dojo and our program through the lens of positive psychology. What are some things that you see in our program? Because obviously it's a lot of time.
Yeah.
It's a huge commitment. So what were some things that you saw in our program that you said, hey, from the aspect of what I do, this is something that's valuable?
Yeah. And I'm also going to start right where I ended with what I was talking about with connection community. Whenever I talk about the dojo or my kids' experience with getting their black belt, I always think about the run time. And the reason why I think about it, it actually makes me emotional. When I think about the kids going out there, one, they're doing something a lot of them thought they could never, get that run time. But what is so inspiring and is such a kind of representative of positive psychology, and even there's a term in like a little catchphrase when positive psychology first started, that other people matter. And I remember going to those runs and I would see these other kids get their run time and then they'd go back out, run the other kids back in, and they're literally like have their hand on their back trying to like push them over the line. And it's the most beautiful thing. I mean, it's truly.
And they feel like if the child they're helping got their run time, is their run time
it's just
too.
as good to them.
Yeah.
And that like speaks to so many elements of other people matter, that they wouldn't get their run time without the help of these other, the support and the pushing. Goes into that like meaning and purpose, which is another huge piece of positive psychology, is making meaning and these kids finding purpose and helping the other kids. And resilience.
I mean, just trying to make that runtime.
Growth mindset.
There's very few situations where people really have to show resilience. When they're out there on that road all by themselves, they hate that canal, the fence, the water, and they just have to go, and it's them in the road. And,
the mental, there's a whole, the mindset piece is so ingrained in growth mindset in the dojo itself. Concepts of self-efficacy, which I don't know if you're familiar with that term, but self-efficacy is really, if you think you can, you think you can. And you build that through peers and seeing they can do it. You build that through small wins. And so, getting each belt as you go. You build that through cheerleaders and champions and people saying you can. And you build that through regulating your own mental kind of resilience and even your physical responses to these things, where it's like your mind goes and you're like, no, I can do this. And so really teaching them that there is such a mental piece to that as well, that these things that we think maybe are not possible. I'll never get a runtime. I'll never, and that completely changes your landscape of life. If for a long time you said, I'll never do that, and then you do it. And then you're like, well, what else do I think that I can never do that I can do? And I think that's part of the whole process of going through, just the whole moving up through small wins through each belt all the way to black belt and beyond.
Yeah, no, I love hearing you say that, because I think a lot of people have an image, probably through TV shows and movies, that it's just kicking and punching. And I think that's something that we've had trouble articulating. Is kind of, for us, something you had to see, So when they come in and they see, oh, there's a lot more to this than just kicking and punching and the physical activity part of it. There's a lot more to it. It's nice to hear you say that, because it's something that I don't think we've done a very good job of communicating to people, and it's hard to. So hopefully, moments like this and something like this podcast kind of will help people understand that, we're not just there to like teach kicking and punching.
No, it's so beyond that. And I would just say also, kind of end of life studies, looking at the things we regret the most, is not the things, the mistakes we made, it's the things we didn't do. And so goal meeting as just kind of the self-actualization of being able to achieve things has its own well-being benefits as well. So achieving the goal, setting your mind to something, going through the steps, the process of that, and then actually getting the belt is really good for your well-being. It's not just, I made this success. It's like, no, I went through that process and I became this person in it that then got the belt. And so those are also really important in positive psychology.
Habits of commitment and sticking to things, and seeing it through to the end and achieving that victory. That check mark in the box for the person you want to be. I hate those conversations. A couple times a year, I'll see somebody, in the mall that didn't make it all the way through, because life gets in the way sometimes. Sure. And they'll be like, that's one of the things that they regret the most, is that they didn't finish it, and so, usually I'm like, well, there's still time. Yeah, there's always and time. Sometimes they do, They always say it's never too late and it's never too early. No, we have a couple of students in their late 60s, early 70s. And, they are definitely very intense. My brother-in-law just got his through the Impact, in the one in Liverpool. Oh yeah, awesome. He's probably 50, early 50s, and he just got his black belt. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, if people want to learn more about this, what are some podcasts, some books? What are some tools that they can start with? Yeah, so I'd mentioned earlier that TED Talk by Shawn Achor. Just give it a listen, because it's really a quick TED Talk. You can YouTube it. How do you spell Achor? Shawn, Achor. 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 See it? Yeah. I think that's right. Don't quote me on it, audience. But Shawn Achor. If you listen to that TED Talk, again, that was my moment of introduction. He's got a couple really great books on the happiness advantage is one of them, and kind of that concept of that happiness leads to benefits, not necessarily that we are in successes, not that it's the successes that always lead to the happiness. He's got some great books. There's so many you can, I would say, if you want to look into anything from UPenn as a Coursera that's free to more formalized, schooling, if you want to take courses from places like the Flourishing Center, or there's also positivepsychology.com, which has some really great resources. Podcasts, I would say, there's a couple of them that are specific to positive psychology, but it's infused in all of the good podcasts. Yeah. So if you're any of the things, whether it's the School of Greatness or Mel Robbins or the One You Feed, or any of these podcasts that are big, generally have a lot of positive psychology infused into the thought leaders. People are seeking it out. They are. Even if they don't know exactly what they're seeking out. They don't know what they're, well, they like what they hear. I think that should be my tagline. Like, you don't know you need me. Yeah. But something along those lines. Because usually people are like, I didn't know I was looking for this, but I was. Yeah. And then what's the name of your company? If they want to connect with you, or, I know you... I've seen you working with like local groups and colleges and stuff. But I work with a lot of companies, organizations, nonprofits. I've done stuff up at SU, RIT, to anywhere, just all different levels of organizational or individual work. But my company is called Northbound Coaching and Consulting. The website's headnorthbound.com. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on the socials, head_northbound on Instagram. And I think it's Head Northbound on Facebook. But yeah. So you're easy to find.
I'm out there. Northbound Positive Psychology.
Once
put
they
that
figure out
in.
how to spell your first name.
Once they get that, Jaime. Thanks, Mom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming in, Jamie.
Thank you.
And
This
thanks
has been
everybody
fun.
for watching.
Yeah. Thanks
Yeah,
for
we'll
having
see
me.
you guys next time.
All right. Take care.